Power up and spread the light, y'all. It's Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Central Time. Time for Center of Light Radio. Center of Light Radio, Center of Divine Unfoldment and Reinforcement. Strap in all my brother and sister astronauts as we launch for inner space. Welcome, everyone. Got a really good show for you. A dear friend of mine is going to be here. Producer, director of Do What You Love, A Path to Passionate Living. The movie about my life made some years ago that we recently did a live presentation. Very well done, actually. After a few years of letting it do its thing, we decided to release it publicly. You can find that on YouTube, or simply you can contact me, my personal inbox on Facebook, or at KeithAnthonyBlanchard@gmail.com. I'd be more than happy to send you that movie. It's about an hour and a half long. Lots of footage of me on Beale Street playing music, going down there and chatting with people who are living their passion, hence the title of the movie, Do What You Love. It's a phenomenal story how this all came about. Phil, my friend, who's going to be on Center of Light Radio tonight, he and I got together. He was contemplating being an independent film director. Didn't know how to do that. So he said, Keith, can we get together and talk for a little bit? So he came up to my apartment, and he said that he wanted to go to school to be a director, and he didn't know how to do that. I said, bro, your knowing how is not your gig. Your job is to simply just want this like you want your next breath. So don't worry about how it's going to happen. So I haven't spoken to Phil two and a half years. One day I get a call. Hey, Keith, it's Phil. Hey, guy, what's going on? Just want to let you know I got out of school with honors or accolades or whatever it is, the dialogue was. And he said, I'm an independent film director. And as a way of saying thank you, I want to make a movie about what you're doing. I said, come on down to Memphis. And he sure nizzle did. Do What You Love. You can find that at on YouTube. Just look up Do What You Love, the movie. And I'm sure it'll just populate immediately. Share this video, this interview, to your wall. You can always find in this group of links somewhere in this forum a link to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe to my channel. It helps my beautiful work, my lifelong work, become very visible by your help. This platform is for all of us. I live near an industrial train station, so if you're listening on a PC where you got a decent stereo to where you create some subwoofers, listen. The whole ground is shaking. I love it, love it. And the train is very haunting late at night when I'm just chilling out doing my God thing, and in the distance I hear this train whistle fire off. Center of Light Radio. Notify me when Keith goes live. There's 3 dots somewhere in this room. I think they call that an ellipsis. There's also a donate link to support this beautiful work. I also want to say thank you to videoshow.live, Tom Schaefer. You can also find this broadcast on YouTube, Center of Light Radio Live. You can also find it at videoshow.live/center. Center, that magical space where all the magic happens. Magical space, magic happens only out of a magical space. And that lives right smack dab. Boy, my southern just came out. Right smack dab in the center of your chest. I'm from Mississippi. Welcome to Center of Light Radio. Again, everyone in Facebook. I will be getting to Facebook eventually, so hello everyone. I appreciate your return visits. Also, in closing, I am giving readings right now. Personal readings, spiritual readings, counseling, or whatever you choose to deem it. I don't play the psychic card. Don't come to me to ask me about your future. However, if you and I get together and we start this spiritual tennis dialogue, if you will, we'll find out what it is you are truly wanting. And I will be your guide. I will be your sounding board. I will grab you and throw you into the moving river if that's what it takes. But I will not play the psychic card. I will give you intuition to tell you what I think may be coming, what you can do to step aside so it doesn't stick because you're wearing your Velcro skin at this period of your life, or if you're wearing some baby oil and you're getting silky smooth and slick and it slide right off you. This is what I'll do. I will not tell you you're going to find your soulmate. That's not what I'm about. I am about development and empowerment. If you come to me one time, it is my goal that you never come back. That means I've done my work thoroughly. That's my gig. That's what I'm into. You can leave a message in this forum. Keith, I'm interested in reading and or in counseling. Or you could send me a personal Facebook message at facebook.com/Keith Anthony Blanchard. Also, you can please go to facebook.com/Center of Light Radio. I am shifting all my affairs slowly but surely to Center of Light Radio. Center of Light Radio is now 24/7-ish. The ish means when I'm not doing a presentation like now on my personal wall or Center of Light Radio on Facebook. You can find an ongoing feed. That's why I named it 24/7-ish. The ish is my my clause to not be on 24/7. To find all of my presentations that I do, and this way via Facebook and social media, but also my radio interviews from Inception Radio Network. Hundreds of interviews. Doctors, scientists, God-realized men from India. I achieved a listening audience of over 4.5 million, closer to 5 million. In the 4 years, just under 4 years I was there. Tonight my guest is Mr. P.J. Galati, and we're going to be talking about his novel. Check this out, really cool. The Legend of La La Land. I have not had the blessed opportunity yet to dive into this work. You can bet it's coming. So, commercial break. I'm going to be right back with Mr. P.J. Galati. Let's see what beautiful song. I'm going to play some from my friend Andrea Forrest. Check this out. Phenomenal piece of music. with an amazing product offer. We have been hearing about hemp oil for the last couple of years and its potential. Let me introduce you to my dear friend, Miss Jackie Atwell. Our oil helps bring your body back to a state of wellness. It is also used as a preventative from illness. It works by bringing the body back to homeostasis and balance. It's a natural, organic, non-GMO, full-spectrum oil. Third-party tested and comes with a certificate of analysis. Posted on our information page. Awesome anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. If you are suffering in silence, give it a try. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. 60-day empty bottle money-back guaranteed refund. To order, go to www.hempworks.com/Jackie Atwell. That's www.hempworks.com/Jackie Atwell. Welcome back to Center of Light Radio. Keith Anthony Blanchard here, your host. Center of Light Radio fires off every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Working on moving toward the 2-hour show. It takes a lot of endurance, a lot of thinking, versus when I do my presentations, I fall into spirit. So this is a little different application, so hang tight with me. But I do have lots of really phenomenal guests coming down the pike very soon. As I do tonight, my dear friend, Mr. PJ Galati. Let me tell you about PJ Galati before I bring him on. Oh, also, while I'm thinking about it, this beautiful man, please, dear Lord, like Medea would say, dear Lord, I don't have an image of Swamiji Viswayogi. He's coming back to Memphis. That means I get to hang out. I get to get blessings and kudos and interview him. What a beautiful, oh my God, great, beautiful, graceful, beautiful experience that is. That's coming in the near future. Make sure you stick around for that. Wow. And when you watch this man walk, it's like he's gliding on water. It's just truly phenomenal. Now it's time to get down to Center of Light Radio business. PJ Galati is my guest tonight. We're talking about his new novel, brand new novel. He also has a fundraiser campaign. He wants support. He deserves support. He's passionate about his life. He's passionate about his work / play. The Legend of La La Land. Originally from Morristown, New Jersey, PJ Galati grew up in a creative environment. See, I'm learning stuff about my Broham sandwich I didn't know either. A creative environment, encouraged by his parents to pursue all avenues. From a young age, drawing and creating were present. Later turning to writing poetry, keeping a journal and short fiction. His creative passion transitioned into working with electronics and the art of deconstructing objects to find how they fit together. That sounds like my kitty bullshit apart. Just a attending Rutgers University for Electronics, PJ Galati did not focus on writing classes, and for the most part is self-taught. Ever the romantic, ladies, PJ Galati produced a small amount of poetry for a few college girlfriends. Of course he did. But it wasn't until 2016 that his passion for writing poetry was rekindled. Finding a new outlet on Instagram, he has produced over 300 poems ranging from romance to risque, all written for love interests. A modern Renaissance man, he loves to create with his hands in many mediums, from wood, and I've seen his work, it's very well done, leather, ink on paper, photography, digital art, and circuits to metal fabrication, and acrylic on canvas. Starting his professional life as electronics troubleshooter, he worked over a decade in the field before feeling the draw of the arts pulling back to him. He went back to college, or went to school and learned that independent film directing that we spoke about just a little earlier. Let me see where it was. Here, pulling him back. He rearranged his priorities and headed to the New York Film Academy, graduating from their filmmaking program. Fully invested in storytelling through film, PJ Galati continued his writing with several science fiction featured film screenplays and the unexpected novel, The Legend of La La Land. There's more to the bio. That's a lot. Whew. I'm short-winded. Welcome to Center of Light Radio, my bro ham sandwich, Mr. Phil Galati. What's up, bro?
Hey Keith, what's up?
Oh, I'm good. How's your mama now?
My mama's in good health. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, brother. Welcome up to the show. It's been a while since I've spoken with you in this way.
Since we did the movie, yeah, we did do a show. I think about a year after the movie was done, or maybe a little bit longer.
I never saw this coming. Well, honestly, I never saw the it coming when you were wanting to go to film school. And then I figured film's going to pursue this your whole life, that you're going to do this your whole life, which you are going to do. I know that without a doubt. You're always going to be a creator. See, you're like me. You sit in a chair, and then shit starts to fire off, and then and when I know this about you because I know this about me, and I see this in you. Once you start something, it may take 1,000 years, but you're never going to retire the project.
Yeah,
Would that be
that's
a true
true.
statement, sir?
Yeah, I've always got many projects going at the same time, and they're not specifically in the same genre. I've got physical making projects, like where I'm making things out of metal and wood that are in various stages in my shop of being made. I have a lot of different stories that I've got a folder on my computer with 50 different projects for screenplays in various different stages of completion, from outline to just a rough idea. Um, I have there's a lot of projects. I constantly have things going, and there's stuff that you just don't know when it's going to start again. Like when I the very first book that I started was in the 90s, and to this day that book is not done. That was the first book I started, and I don't recall how many pages in, but that's like a project that eventually someday I will come back to.
Like you, Phil, when I was a kid, I remember I was in school. I was a boy. I wasn't even an adolescent. Our teacher asked us to write a story, create a story, fictional, just make it up, and there's no right or wrong. And I created this story about Godzilla, and they couldn't kill this big creature stomping all over the world, and they decided to create this real life looking deer that they knew, or whatever food that the creature ate, and they poisoned it. Anyway, I got an A plus. But I've always been this creative guy. My imagination is beyond imagination, if you know what I mean. So
Hmm.
what sparked this idea? Now here's where it gets multi-layered. What sparked this idea? Well, I want to be a writer. Did it happen that way? I want to be a writer. So let me fabricate an idea. Or did one day you're sitting on the toilet and something says, you're now going to be a writer? And whatever the answer to whatever question that is, La La Land has a very mysterious, esoteric kind of perspective to it. How did you become a
So
writer?
I I don't really think there was like a definitive time when I decided to be a writer. I got those school assignments too, where you had to write things, and when I got them, though, I didn't really care for them. I didn't like when I was being told what to write, but I would always write on my own. Sort of I had a journal when I was a teenager, and I did do a few short stories that weren't very good. But I always liked the idea of writing, specifically like with fountain pens. I was fascinated for quite some time with fountain pens and just writing things down with fountain pens. And it didn't really matter what it was. I do have a large. I started making handmade, hand torn paper, leather covered leather journals, and that would hold fountain pens, and I would write spiritual things down in them. Um, but the writing just kept going. It just kind of kept evolving. And the way that La La Land came about, I did not know that it was a novel when I started writing it. Originally, what happened is I had a dream about these giant killer catfish, like catfish the size of whales, like giant whales out in the ocean. And they were attacking a beach and they were swallowing people whole. And so when I woke up with this dream, I was trying to figure out exactly where this could take place because it was not happening on Earth. Catfish don't get that big. And so I let it kind of stew around until it came to this point where, well, maybe it happened in like the daydream world, which I've always known as La La Land. That's growing up, you know, you always hear, you know, people are daydreaming.
And
They
see,
go to La La Land.
that's the mystical component that I mentioned. It's the other place, and whatever happens in your other place is allowed, but that's your other place. So I love it.
I truly believe that when we're sleeping, um, the body and the soul both need to recharge, and so the soul kind of goes out and visits wherever it feels like going. That's you know, and I've thought that for many years now. You know, it's not something that's provable; it's just a feeling. But I think that that accounts for a lot of the dreams that we have and these kind of fantastical scenarios that don't always make sense. Um, but this story is about that kind of thing happening to you know, the main character. He gets trapped in a place where he's not supposed to be trapped.
For me, it was quite different. I was thrown into being a writer, and I'm not going to go into that story. Everyone already knows it. You know, when I remember playing a gig, the one that the same venue that you filmed in the movie,
Hmm.
getting off a stage just to go use the bathroom. I have no agenda. I'm just going to use the little boys' room, and on the way to the bathroom, I get this download of the entire story of Eden Sky. And so, how long did it take you to get this momentum moving to where you realize I have something here and I also have a vision of what the end might be, though you're open to interpretation and all ideas because you want to wait for the ending to unfold. You don't want to just write this story, but how long did it take you to write the book and actually get your groove on to where you knew that there was something happening to where I have something solid here?
Okay, so I'm going to preface that with I've written several feature screenplays and short films, and whenever you write those, they're very highly structured. You start with an outline and character development, and you have to know the end before you could even start writing. That's not what happened with this book. I started writing this in 2006, and I was, like I said, trying to make sense out of the dream I'd had. And I was basically just writing whenever I got inspired, I'd write a couple pages. And so from 2006 to 2016, I had only had about 58 typed pages. And you know, I was just, like I said, whenever inspiration hit me, I'd just write a little bit more. And I did not have an outline. The only thing that I had was I made a map of La La Land so that I understood where all the action was happening and where the characters were going. And uh, something happened in 2016. We'll just say that someone inspired me. And once that inspiration hit, I, in August of 2016, started writing with intent and purpose. And I basically wrote three-quarters or more of the book from from August of 2016 to October. So within 2 months, I basically wrote over 75% of the book. And this is all, again, without an outline, without character development. It's not normal for me to write like this. And I wrote the entire story as if someone had already told me the story and I was just remembering it. And I did not know what the story was about until I hit about 85, 87,000 words. And the entire book is 119,000 words. And once I was in that flow, I tracked myself. I was tracking my word count every day, because you need 75,000 words to reach a novel length piece of work. So there was a period where I was writing 4,000 to 5,000 words per day for an 8-day period.
I hear you. And
Yeah.
here's the irony: all those words you wrote, more than half of them going to be X'd out.
Oh yeah. Oh I have just a slight case of dyslexia. So there was all kind, like, I wasn't paying attention to the spelling or anything. I mean, it had to be proofread several times. But I mean, it was, my fingers were like a blur. They were just going so fast, and it was, I'll put it into perspective for you. If I could maintain that pace of writing, the book would have taken me 19 days to write. So that was definitely some movement coming through me to get that out into the digital paper, so to speak.
So we're at the bottom of the hour. We're going to wait. Let's just chit chat for a couple more minutes. That way it's a cliffhanger. I love cliffhanger. It makes people stick around. You know the gig, man. You're in the industry.
I am.
Welcome everyone to Center of Light Radio. Keith Anthony Blanchard here, your host, Center of Divine Unfoldment and Reinforcement. My guest tonight is Mr. PJ Galati, and we're talking about, again, I'm going to show you the cover of this. I love the cover. It's fanciful. Duh. La La Land, as you expressed. It's really, really cool. It has a gnome feel. I guess it's the castle tops that look like hats.
The cover is the one piece of artwork that I did not do. I had to hire somebody to do that. That is of the main character, John. He's standing out in the back. He works for he's a pizza delivery guy, and he's standing in the back of the place where he works, out where the dumpsters and the trash are. And he was smoking a joint with the dishwasher. And then the dishwasher got called back inside, so he was left out there. And the marijuana was laced with peyote. And so he.
And excuse me, who is this guy again?
The dishwasher. His name is Juan Carlos.
Yeah. Carlos Spicy Wiener.
There we go.
All right.
But yeah, this is basically John enters La La Land through this puddle. The dishwasher is washing the dishes. There's a leak, and the water drains out into the back of the restaurant where he's standing with this joint, and he dips his toe in and literally gets sucked in, and he gets transported to La La Land, supposedly by accident. He wasn't intending to go, but that's what the cover represents, is him sort of looking through this puddle as like a portal. And I had a good friend of mine, Tanya Dietrich, who's in South Africa. She went to a film school with me at the New York Film Academy, and it was her idea. Because we were trying to come up with the cover, like what would actually encapsulate the story in just one image, and that was her idea, and I really loved it. That he was looking into the puddle of water like a portal. But yeah, the cover I had outsourced, and then all of the other artwork for the book I did myself. There's a bunch of creatures and different things. Each chapter has its own artwork, and then there's 2 maps inside the book as well that I did. I did everything, drew everything myself, and then with drafting pens, and then scanned it in and put it into the book.
Phil, before we go to a commercial pause here, would you give out any contact, any way they can go and look and to peruse and see if they're interested in purchasing this fantastic piece of work?
Yes, if you go to Indiegogo.com and just search for The Legend of La La Land, there's currently, it's the last week for the fundraiser. The fundraiser is not to sell the book. Although if you back it at a certain level, you will get a physical copy or an audiobook or an ebook. But the fundraiser is to help me hire professionals so that I can get a literary agent and a publisher, and so that I can do this properly. Because I work in the film industry, I don't know the literary industry very well. So I'm trying to just raise money so that I can do this properly and give this book a life of its own. So it's Indiegogo.com, and then just search for The Legend of La La Land.
Welcome to Center of Light Radio, everyone. Going to be right back after this commercial break with my guest, even more. We're going to be here for a while. Center of Light Radio. You can find more about Center of Light Radio at centeroflightradio.com. There's lots of really cool stuff there. Check it out. I'll be right back. Stick around.
Remember that all things are possible. You must choose to be accountable, responsible, enough to believe, and open your heart to receive.
Choice, lights and choice.
Welcome back to Center of Light. Did you hear the power come out of that song? My God. It's relentless. It starts off with this, and then you get all these phenomenal world-class players of the Memphis Symphony Orchestra behind this silly idea I had one night after having some tequila. And we created this beautiful album called Beautiful World. We're actually going in the studio. Check this out. The phone call happened today. I'm so excited. I'm giddy like a kid, like a puppy dog in a pet store, wagging his tail because someone's giving him attention. We're going to start writing the songs in the studio as we record it. I'm blessed to have that privilege, that freedom, that liberty by a dear friend of mine by the name of Dennis Cup. Delnicio del Toro, he calls himself. I guess that's his alter ego. Welcome back to Center of Light Radio. My name is Keith Anthony Blanchard, your host. Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Central Time. Thank you for joining me. I have lots of phenomenal guests coming down the highway very soon. Next week, my guest is going to be Lisa Campion. She's full of fire, full of energy. And that's what we're all seeking. Everyone, listen to this. Let me tell you a spiritual secret. Everyone in the universe is seeking one thing. It may take different forms, but we're all seeking one thing. Energy. Whatever it is you want, it's energy. Welcome back to Center of Light Radio tonight. My guest is Mr. PJ Galati. Phil, welcome back, bro. Ham sandwich.
Hey, I was enjoying the little interlude there. I remember being in that space when we were recording the movie.
Yeah, and it's this play. You know, here's the thing. For those who have not seen the movie yet, you can just contact me here. Keith, I'm interested in the movie. Send it to me. My personal inbox. You can find me. You know how to do it. Keith, I'm interested in the movie. You can go to centeroflightradio.com and Do What You Love is the name of the movie. So that being said, and it's available there. I did make it visible. So Phil decided he's coming to Memphis, all right? He said, pay for my journey. I said, no problem. Pay for his journey. He got here. He had this long beard, goatee with a braided a few times with bands. Remember that? And we really had no script. And we said, what are we going to talk about? He goes, well, you doing what you love. And then that what you're living, I said, basically paraphrasing the idea, of course. And this is what happened. And everything just began to unfold. Everything just got out of our way. And it became alive, didn't it, Phil?
Yeah, I think that I think we shot for, was it about two weeks? I think.
A total of 2 weeks. That's right, sir.
And within that 2 weeks, I think that we were a few days in when the entire thing sort of came together after we had shot for a few days, and then we realized that it was going to be do what you love and about living your passion. I think it was just watching you interact with people. That was what started to just naturally come out, because that's how you are every day.
And I can't turn it off. I don't want to. There's so much life in there. I'm an addict.
Well, we all addicted to something. Yeah. You know, it's just a matter of whether it's a good addiction or a bad addiction. You know?
So, Phil, let's get down and start talking about why we're here. Let's begin to talk about your book, The Legend of La La Land. Welcome, everyone, Facebook, YouTube, across the world, to Center of Light Radio with myself and my guest, Mr. PJ Galati, and we're talking about his novel tonight. Phil, would you consider your novel being released or soon to be? Oh no, you're still in the formatting stage of bringing it to the public. Is that right?
The book itself is done. It is a completed. You know, I've got I had one copy printed up. I don't know if you can kind of see it here in the camera.
Raise it up. That's gorgeous. You know, Phil, I want to ask you this question before we dive into, I'm creating this amazing cliffhanger. Yeah, I love the thickness of it. You know, you got to love the thickness of a book. You can write a small book. It ain't all about the bling bling and the ego. But God damn it, I want to write a book.
You've written several books. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So let me ask you this question before we get into the content of the advert of getting people to migrate towards your work. So here's Phil. He writes this book, right? Send it off.
So
get it published. Published meaning the first copy comes back to you.
Well, I had it printed. Printed,
you had it,
not
right,
published.
Right.
Because I paid for that one copy.
Exactly. So here's my question. And by the way, who did you go with? Lightning Source?
It was just, I just did a Google search for who would print one book.
So here's my question. My question. So you took this period of your life and you created a baby. You actually gave birth to something, right?
Yeah.
And so you're done and you're satisfied. You looked over and I'm done. And I know you're very methodical, which is very awesome in this arena. And one day you hear UPS, right? And that package is sitting there on the doorstep.
Mm-hmm.
You take it in and you're already salivating, right? And you can't find a freaking knife fast enough to cut that box open. And when you open it up and you see your child, this thing right there. What was that feeling?
At that point, it felt like the book was real. Up until I actually had a physical copy, everything was living on my computer. It was constantly being changed and revised, and there was little details here and there, but it was all living in the digital world. And once I actually got that physical copy, it all of a sudden hit me that it's a real book, and I am going to be a published author. Like that was the thing that kind of just washed over me. And it's a weird feeling. But I've been, like I said, I've been working on this since 2006. We're now in 2019. So this is like a 13-year journey for me it's like having a baby that's now a teenager, but it's just now, your kid is just now like getting pushed out into the world for everybody else to see. And it's a very surreal kind of a thing.
I love it. I love your analogy. You echoed exactly what I said. You gave birth to something that's alive. People say, Keith, this is just a static, frozen book with words. No. There's a lot more in that book. And it ain't about the words. Because the words and the text and the font is all just a way of taking in someone's soul, someone's expression. And if you can find yourself, well, you can, if you allow yourself to move to where the author truly came from, that's when a book gets really, really good. You can have bad grammar. It's not really about all that. And that does reflect to the author. But what I really like that you said, Phil, is something I've been saying. And I often, for the newcomers, it's not a defense. It's just so they understand where I come from. But what I like that you said was you acknowledged, I created this. A lot of people would say, a lot of people, spiritualists, and I understand it, totally understand it. But I want to dabble in that arena, which is, if you talk about your accolades, that's going straight to the ego. I totally disagree. I get it if you gloat and you boast, and I get that's not what I'm talking about. When you talk about your accomplishments, you're the guy next door. I know you are. Mm-hmm. I'm the guy next door. I know I am. And it makes it for those around us in our experience. This is a knucklehead just like me. It makes it tangible for them. A friend of mine, he comes on the radio, on my shows, and I announce him because he's a gold record producer. And he doesn't really like that idea, and I honor his wishes. But I like that because those accolades that we achieve will never happen without the ego. Because it requires ego to drive a car. Without an ego, you don't have a body. So it requires the ego to achieve these milestones. So I want to acknowledge to me how important I think that is that we share these aspects of ourselves, our mystical experiences. So Phil, I want to get down into the meat and taters of your book. For those who don't know you like I do, how would you describe your book your new novel,
So,
The Legend of La La Land.
In a just a little snapshot, very much like what you just said, this is a book about an average guy, maybe even a little below average. This is about the main character's name is John. He's a pizza delivery guy, and not a particularly successful pizza delivery guy. He's in his late 20s, and he's the kind of person that, after high school, everything just sort of never went anywhere for him. So he's not like anybody that is of any specific skill or talent. He's just an average guy, and he gets thrown into this daydream world where everything is very extraordinary. And at first, it seems like it's a magical fantasy land where everything is really good, but then very quickly he finds out that there is a dark undercurrent, and that nearly everything there is about to kill him. And this becomes a rite of passage for him. It's like him becoming a man for the first time, and not only taking responsibility for himself, but he has other people that begin to follow him. He forms like a little group, and he becomes responsible for them as well. He becomes a leader, which is something that he's never been before. So it's basically one of those things where you have to step up to the plate and take control, or face the consequences of the chaos around you. And he steps up to the plate, and it's an adventure. The whole story is an adventure. It's written very unpredictably. There is no way that you can know what's going to happen next. I had
That's
several
very
test
cool.
readers.
Now, look, let me tell you something. That's very, very cool, because you get into a dialogue with your friend on Friday night after you get out of your cubicle from 9 to 5 for a week. You start bantering back and forth, and you get into your spin with your Stella Artois beer, which is my favorite. Dear Lord, buy me a Stella Artois beer with a shot of tequila. Anyway, you can kind of predict where things are going with your hanging out buddies, right? But it requires a writer who can think beyond just the process of creativity, of inspiring just an idea. Because now what you're doing, when you create an unpredictability, it's another layer of creativity.
Right. Well, if in the preface to the book, I actually say that I didn't write the book, I recorded the book. Because I believe that I wrote this entire story as if it had already been told to me, and I was just remembering it. And so, there's a very good possibility that somewhere this actually happened. Out somewhere in another far away universe, which is
well,
part of the story.
since you asked the question, let's play the game. Let's play it out. Let's play the hand. Where did you extrapolate? Where did you grab this idea from? You grabbed it from somewhere in creation that's already been created. It's already existed, or you couldn't have retrieved it from some particular reservoir. Right. So this reality is alive somewhere, and your baby that you've pushed out and manifested is proof of that. So instead of telling us about the book, since you got your book near you, if you want to, why don't you share something with us from the book so we can check out your writing style and kind of hear from the author himself.
Okay, so just a little preface to where I'm picking up. I'm going to start on page 41. So this is after John has just made it out of the danger forest, which is full of a lot of monsters, and he almost died several times. And he goes to a merchant who had sold him a pair of boots, and he owed some favors to, which is a form of payment in La La Land. You can pay with O's. And so the merchant charges him with delivering this package to someone inside the danger forest. And John has just accepted, and he's there with his attractive lady, Cynthia. So this is where we pick up. John accepted the small box and shook hands with Fressel. The portly bootmaker then headed inside his shop and closed the door. John shook his head a little, realizing that even in a dream world, he was making deliveries. Working at the Pizza Queen had now infected his imagination as well. Cynthia, is there a place I can get some guns or explosives around here? I'm going to need something to protect myself if I have to go back into the forest, John said, thinking about the giant killer toads. John, I'm coming with you, Cynthia said, excited. What? Are you sure, Cynthia? The things that happened to me last time nearly killed me. I don't want you to get hurt. John's voice was full of concern. Oh, you're so sweet. I want to go with you, John. If anything happens, maybe I can help, she smiled. Okay, well, what about some weapons? John continued his train of thought for defense. Well, no place here has guns or explosives, she shook her head. Swords and shields? John asked. Nope, she stated in the same tone. Lasers, missiles, a bazooka? John asked. Cynthia just shook her head. What about a bow and arrow or a crossbow or even some knives? No knives, she stated. You don't have knives? John yelled, exasperated. What kind of city has no knives? We don't really have a need for that sort of thing here. This is La La Land, John, she said a bit despondently. Don't have the need? There's giant catfish attacking your beaches, God knows what inside the danger forest, and large moving isles coming up on the land and walking around. How could you not have any weapons? John yelled even more excitedly. So we're going to leave it there. That's just a little taste of he's stuck in a place with no weapons and monsters.
It sounds like a potential movie.
That is part of the plan. That is part of the plan.
But I picked up on that immediately in your inflection, the descriptive, all the adjectives, the commas. She responded, all these kinds of ideas. I just saw that completely as, there's a difference of handing someone a book and writing a script that if you want to present it to someone who might be interested in a purchase. This kind of sounds like it's actually a book ready for someone just to simply look at and already have the script and the dialogue somewhat ready to go.
The plan is, I would like, once it gets published, once it's actually out for consumption, within 5 years, I want either a film or a TV series to start. That's the goal. So there's more plans for the entire the La La Land universe, but as far as like the book being turned into a movie or a TV show, it's a 5-year plan, which I think is very realistic. That's enough time for it to get some traction, get some notoriety, get some people out in Hollywood hungry for it. And then, I've written several screenplays. I haven't written anything for this because I want someone to, basically, I want someone to pay me to do it. It's my work, and I want them to first say that they're interested, and then they're going to say, we have someone that can write it, and I'm going to say, I'm going to write it. I wrote this. I work in the film industry. You want my story? I'm attached, and that's that. But there is a longer plan for this series. Currently I have a 5-book outline. So this is just one of 5, but it could easily go to 10 or 15 books. I'm still working out some of the details.
Let's talk about John and Cynthia. John and Cynthia pulled together an irregular group during their journey. I love that word, journey. There's just so much that can happen in a journey. How did you decide on who was going to be in the group?
So the way the story unfolds is John is kind of pushed forward, and he doesn't really have any kind of clear direction. And in this sort of rambling forward movement, he and Cynthia, Cynthia has known John for several hundred years, but John does not remember that because there's some darker forces at play in La La Land. So Cynthia is in love with John, so she sticks by him. And the two of them, as they're making their way through, just trying to survive, run into other people that have been stranded, and they end up saving them, basically just through their own creativity and ingenuity. They save these other people in the story. One happens to be a tree elf, and then the next is a fire demon, which is the fire demon is a three-headed, three-armed, three-legged creature who's like an unlikely companion. You're more likely to run away from a fire demon than to talk to them. So their group is very unorthodox, and then to kind of round everything off, the fifth member of the group is God's cousin.
Right.
So, yeah,
which God you referring to? Because that don't sound like no God I ever done heard of.
Well, in La La Land, what we find out is that our universe, where Earth is, has a God. La La Land is a different universe. It's not in. It's think of it as a neighboring system.
Now I understand. Yes, yes.
So because it's a neighboring, it's actually a microverse. It's much smaller.
Just different, completely different from what we know as reality.
Right.
Okay.
And the creator of La La Land happens to take a physical form, and he's actually sort of in trouble himself in La La Land. He's kind of stuck there as well. And that is an integrated part of the story, like how he got stuck there and you know, what's going on, and sort of the darker forces at play. But yeah, there's a little conversation, and you know, John finds out that this guy is related to the God that we know here on Earth. And so he said, just think of me as your God's cousin. And so there is an actual race of divine beings, and divine beings, their sole purpose is to create universes. And that's like their playground. Like they study for literally eons until they're ready to create their own universe. And then what they need is this stuff called creation energy. And depending on how much creation energy you get, that affects the size of the universe that you can create.
Wow, I dig that. Keith Anthony Blanchard here, your host. Stick around. We got one more half hour with my beautiful friend with his beautiful work. Let's see where I can find that cover. There we go. The Legend of La La Land. Next week on Center of Light Radio, my guest is going to be Miss Lisa Campion. And we're going to talk about the sensitivity cure. I heard she's very powerful. She can highly recommend it. Swamji's coming to town, y'all. I'm getting all giddy. I'm getting very excited. Dear Lord, I'm getting excited. Stick around. We're going to be right back with my guest, Mr. P.J. Galati. Talk a little more about his book, his novel, brand new. Looking for support. The Legend of La La Land. I'll take this time to take a beautiful breath. Simply just breathe, because life is beautiful.
Trust that I will guide you in whatever you do. Just remember to breathe and do your very best to live in love, give in love, be in love, and love you shall receive.
expand myself to know there is no one else but me and God who's in my heart.
Give me some. Welcome back to Center of Light Radio. My name is Keith Anthony Blanchard. I am your host. Back after a year of hiatus. Had to take a break. I love every moment of it. Blood, sweat, and tears. I loved it. I still love it. Hence, I'm back after a year. Starting from ground up. After 4 years with Inception Radio Network, maybe 3.5. I achieved a listening audience of 4.5 million people. As I spoke with my friend Phil Galati, my guest tonight, about why I talk about my achievements. I like talking about my achievements. I put a lot of love, work, passion. And it's a reminder of my diligence. Something that means something. Something that may not only brighten my life, but may change only one person's world. Just one. That's all it's required of everyone. It brings it home for everyone around you. I'm not asking you to be a pompous ass. You know, maybe someone needs your upliftment, but say, look, dude, this is what happened. Look, redirect yourself. Turn inward. Daydream. Go to La La Land. In fact, it's not a legend. Maybe Phil would entertain the idea of the legend of La La Land to living in La La Land and the reality of La La Land. Phil, I'm coming after your royalties, bro.
If you want those, you got to go to La La Land and get them.
Right?
Oh, yeah. And it's a dangerous place, let me tell you.
Right? Well, coming from your creative mind, it would have to be Something of a challenge for sure. What are a few things you think people will really take in and like about your work, sir? What do you think they're going to like about it?
I could tell you the comedy is definitely good. There's a lot of humor in the book. So it's not just a straight read. It's definitely, there's a lot of funny little bits
I would
in there.
bet that would be dry humor, yes?
Yes. There's
yeah,
a lot of dry humor. There's specifically like with Cynthia. Cynthia is a blonde-haired goddess. She is like this just, she's built like Wonder Woman. And she is the fiercest warrior in the story. Out of all the fights they get into, Cynthia is a total badass. But at the same time, she has these blonde moments where John will say something and she just can't. She's like, it's like she's talking to a 5-year-old. She's just like, well, what does that mean? She has no clue. And it's just hilarious. It's hilarious that she navigates everything so well, but then every once in a while there's just these little blips, and she's just so adorable. But the thing that I really like, that I hope other people will like, is because as I mentioned earlier, because there are no actual weapons in La La Land, not even a dinner fork. They end up having to get these we'll call them familiars. And this is of my own creation. I've never heard of anything like this in any other book or story anywhere. There are these living creatures called threat bashers.
They're called what, sir?
Threat bashers.
Threat bashers.
Yeah. Okay. So imagine what a ferret looks like. Okay, but instead of like a ferret that's like, like a foot long, imagine a ferret that's like about 3.5 feet long. Okay, and it doesn't have eyes. It has these triangular plates, and its entire body is covered with fur, but beneath the fur is armor. It's got these like almost like dragon scales. Okay, and you have to go through a bonding process with the threat basher. It has to pick you, and then it's an ordeal. And then once you have it, the threat basher, whenever you're in danger, you just point the threat basher at whatever it is that's threatening you, and it comes up with the perfect countermeasure. Whether
wow, dude, that's amazing. That's really, really cool.
In
other words, what you're saying is that it is one of its superhero attributes as a sentient being, that it knows in a situation what it takes to neutralize whatever.
I won't say neutralize. It comes up with a counter.
A counter.
Okay. Yeah, because okay, for instance,
a strategy, an absolute strategy. Okay.
The shopkeeper that sells them, John and Cynthia, the threat bashers, demonstrates there's a creature in his shop that breathes fire, and so he holds his threat basher up to the creature, and when it breathes fire, the threat basher puffs up. All its fur puffs up like a giant cotton ball, 3.5 feet across, and so it blocks all the fire from hitting the owner. And then, but then the threat basher is fine. Its fur is unsinged. It doesn't get burned. It just blocks the fire. So it didn't actually attack the thing that was attacking them. It just protected the owner. And there's a lot of stuff like that where there's counters, but it's not something like the creature doesn't do all the work. You still have to be like smart enough to know, like, when it's doing something, you have to do something too. So it's
a symbiotic. It's a symbiotic relationship to pull off what it is you're wanting. From the chat room and Facebook, my brother Elwood Colwalt says, "I already want to know the end. I'm so intrigued." Right.
Well, the one thing I will tell you is this has a super satisfying ending, which is one of the things that I was very worried about. But it is one of those endings where you end smiling, and and the ending is one of the hardest things. You ask any writer, I know Keith, finding a good ending is tough.
And here's the thing: it's not something you find. Would you agree with that? It finds you.
I do agree. Yes, Yes.
It's not like, okay, I'm Stephen King, or maybe he does. Maybe he's skilled in that department. Speaking for me, 7 books. It's not like I know how this is going to end. And, well, then again, I'm not a novelist. I'm a spiritual writer, inspiration kind of work. But still, I can feel when I got like 3 or 4 pages left, maybe 2 now. I get the feeling the bow is being tied. And there's always this cute little question answer dance. For me, it wraps. It's not an agenda I try to achieve. It's like it throws out this one final lure, and you bite, and it takes you to this resolve. Would you agree, Phil, from your perspective, with your movies, with all of your poetry, and now your new novel, which is The Legend of La La Land, do you find that to be true for you, that it ends when it's ready to end?
For the book, for the novel, yes. The novel definitely ended when it felt like it. I did not have any clear plan. Like I said, I was just listening, and I was like I was just recording what someone had told me in another life, or however you want to listen to it. But I did not have any kind of structure or anything. And I was truly amazed that the story came out as perfectly put together as it did. I mean, it literally, there is something that happens in the first 30 pages of the story that is not explained until around page 300. And so when you consider that I did not write an outline for this, and I wrote something in 2006 that didn't get explained until 10 years later as to why I wrote it back then. I mean, it's mind-boggling. The poetry, I would say yes. The poetry also sort of ends itself. But when you get into like screenplays are highly, highly structured. They are very, very difficult because you are confined, and you have to really. They're like engineered, and so it's not the same kind of a thing as like writing a poem or writing a novel, where it's more of an art form. So they're different. There is differences in the writing, but if you ask me which one I prefer the novel, because you have so much more freedom to go in different directions.
Yeah, you can make it up. It's your own world versus having it be adhered to some principle that totally. Phil, hang on, let me fix my ear. So, as you create your work, do you feel it comes from your noggin, or do you feel your connection to something that you're actually really retrieving information from a source, not a source that we're detached from, but a source that we just not plug in until we take the intentions, like you and I and other artists, to tap into it? What does your book have though this is a spiritual platform, all work, all art is spiritual. What is spiritual about your work?
So if you're spiritually in tune and you read the novel, there are a lot of hidden gems, things that someone that's in tune would pick up on. It's in the subtext, or sometimes it's kind of out in the open. But even if you're not spiritually in tune, it's not that you won't enjoy the story. You will. It's written for a very wide audience. But there's a lot of interesting little tidbits, which we're going to call like spiritual science. For instance, La La Land is a spirit-based universe. And because it is not physical, like here on Earth, everything there moves faster than it does on Earth. So John spends about 11 days in La La Land, but in Earth time, it's only about 40 minutes. So that opens up an entire dialogue as to how time relates to spirit and physical form, and you know, that's something that's going to be addressed in some of the later books. But there's a lot of little tidbits like that where, if you've been studying this kind of spiritual truths and things like that, you're going to pick up on these little, let's call them Easter eggs.
Easter eggs. Right. So you saw the movie Ready Player One?
I did, yeah.
Oh.
I just saw it about a month ago. And I loved that.
Ian Sky and I saw it in IMAX, brother. And oh my God, it was just so freaking delicious. You know, and it's Steven Spielberg, and it was solid. I thought the script was solid, but even if the script was terrible and you went for the bling bling and the eye candy, it was just great.
That was a great story. I really loved the way that the thing that really grounded it for me is the whole story is just an effects extravaganza. I mean, it is a lot of eye candy, but the entire backbone of the story is based on video games that started in like the 70s. So where we have all this sort of futuristic, let's call it distraction, everything is totally grounded back to the people that are alive now that are watching it and the experiences that they had growing up with video games in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s.
So it crossed quite a few timelines. The era of Atari, basically.
Right.
The progression all the way to the future to where they had all these machines that was so digital and virtual reality as a world. Wow. What else would you expect from Steven Spielberg?
I also think that particular movie, to me, gave the most realistic version of where virtual reality is going.
Where we are going. That's correct, sir. It's happening now. It's happening now. Let me tell you something about that man. He is so brilliant. He knows something. He has people on the inside, or he is so connected he knows something. You think about Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Government secret hideouts behind the mountain that's happening. It's been happening. He knew someone on the inside that told him that, oh, you're just this wild imagination like Gene Roddenberry. That's crazy. That's redonkulous, man. And then all of a sudden, Raiders of the Lost Ark. The Germans trying to create this shit with freaking aliens and this Christed coffin. He knows this stuff. He's just brilliant, in my opinion.
I think that if you look at Steven Spielberg over the years, he definitely seems like somebody that's tuned in. You never see him. He never loses control. Like, you never see him have like a meltdown, like a lot of other people that are highly creative. Sometimes you see them just sort of tumble down this rabbit hole, and you know, they seem they're fallible, just like, you know, everybody. But Steven seems like he's been his creativity. While there's been some lulls, it really does seem like he's been on rails. Like, he's been going in this direction from the get-go. And he's still going in that same direction. It doesn't seem like he's really changed anything since he started. I think that some of his work wasn't as well received as you know, some of the more popular things.
I loved AI.
I did too.
I loved it.
I thought that was a great movie. I think that was one of the ones though that didn't get well received.
That's right. Yeah.
So. Yeah, I think, you know, whether or not public opinion recognizes what you're doing, which I think is important for everybody that's tuned in and on their path, you have to do what you feel is true to you and hope that everybody else sees it. You know, and that's kind of what I'm hoping with this novel. I'm hoping that everybody sees the access. Like, this is one of those things where okay, so I'm gonna say this is not a direct comparison to Harry Potter, but Harry Potter is about, we'll say, a quote unquote semi-normal kid. He's just an ignorant kid because he's been kept out of the magical circle, and then he gets thrown into the magical world, and he does have some special things about him. But he's basically an underdog. He's an underdog in the story, and that's why he's very lovable. In my story, it is the same thing. We have this lovable underdog who is thrown into a situation, a magical world, where he has to learn quickly how to survive. And people love to root for underdogs. It's just one of those things. And in the story, I wanted to very simply uncomplicate a lot of the stuff that we get when we go into completely new worlds. And for instance, in the Harry Potter world, one of the very, very cool things is the number of spells that they have to do and the names of the spells. And they sound very, very magical, usually very Latin-based. In La La Land, it's almost the complete opposite. Everything there is named for what it is. For instance, there's a point where the characters need to clean off. They've got monster goo all over them, and so they have to go someplace for that. So they end up going to Clean Water Lake. That's the name of the lake that they go to. It's Clean Water Lake, and it's very obvious that obviously that water.
That is brilliant. I love it. You call everything face value. You call it for what it is. Wow. Yes.
So the whole story is like that. For instance, right in the middle of the map, there is the Danger Forest, and it is named that because it is very dangerous. Dangerous. There. It is very dangerous. So, the beach is called the beach. The beach. There's no, so everything has a very plain name, but that doesn't detract from the story. That just kind of makes it, to me, it makes it very childlike, where when you have a 5-year-old and you say, well, what's that, and they're like, that's blue, because they're looking at something blue. So from a child's perspective, everything is oversimplified, and I really wanted this fantasy world to have that same feeling of being very, very simple, and all the complexity is underneath everything. And this has a lot of complexity.
Well, the fact that it's very childlike implies imagination it requires to be in this arena. So being it childlike, if we're going to go to the beach, we're going to go to it's called the beach. Right. The Danger Forest, meaning there's danger in this forest. The simplicity is, that's how it's so simple. It requires just this childlike disposition to allow yourself to move in the story. Dude, that's really, really cool, Phil.
I hope everybody receives it that way. So that's the whole thing was written, like I said, to be very, very accessible. You can't figure out what's going to happen next in the story, but everything that does happen just pulls you forward one page at a time. Like, it's a very engaging story, and all of the test readers that I had all said the exact same thing. They were just floored, and I really needed to hear that, because I had been living with this story for so long. And I mean, even after I finished it, I can't tell you how many times I've reread the story, and every time I would read it, I would just think it's even more awesome. But then I'm trying to stay humble, and in the back of my mind, I'm hearing, well, you're just thinking that because you wrote it. You need somebody else to read it and let them tell you what the truth is. And the test readers that I had, I honestly had to almost fight them to get some criticism. They couldn't give me any, which was it was a little frustrating, but I guess it was also sort of a boon to the story, and that what I was feeling was correct.
Phil, thank you very much. Please give out your contact information of what you would like from this listening audience to support you in your beautiful novel, The Legend of La La Land. Tell them all about it, brother.
I would love for everybody to support the book by going to Indiegogo.com and search for The Legend of La La Land. The campaign is going to be ending on the weekend. So if you can help support this, the campaign is not to sell the book. The campaign is for me to hire a professional book coach who is going to help me get a literary agent, which is super difficult. And then the two of them are going to help me get a publisher. There's also the legendoflalaland.com if you'd like to go to the website.
Nice.
But it's at this point, it's kind of a repository of just a synopsis of the book, some of the artwork. I'm going to be putting publicity links, like this radio show up on the site, and it'll become a lot more active once the book is published. But that is it, and you can search for The Legend of La La Land. You can just Google it, and things will come up. And originally it was just La La Land, but then when the movie came out, I added The Legend of La La Land to just differentiate it, so that way it is more searchable for people to find.
Phil, thank you for joining me here on Center of Light Radio Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Central Time, dude. Fantastic interview, dude. Good luck to you. Keep everyone posted. Come back in the future. Tell us where you're going next, and we'll just keep doing this dance forever. We're in a cosmic dance, bro.
I like to dance.
Thank you, brother. Blessings to you.
Thank you, Keith.
Everyone, Mr. P.J. Galati, check out his work, dear friend of mine. Producer, director of Do What You Love, The Path to Passionate Living, movie about my life. I love it. Great movie. It has every beautiful intention in the world. Next week on Center of Light Radio, my guest is going to be Lisa Campion, and we're going to talk about the sensitivity cure. Oh my dear Lord, we're going to have a whole bunch of fun. Shortly, I will be doing another presentation on the 5 elements. That's about 30 minutes. I'll see you soon. Peace, love, and light.